So I've been doing the Vive by Vayner course out of New York these past few months, and I was at a dinner meeting with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, and now I'm going to interview him. It's an interesting one because as an ex-broadcaster, there's so many things I'm fascinated about with his history. Of course, regarding my business, there's also a lot of things I'd like to ask him. So on balance, I think I'll just dig in and then obviously improvise. He's a fast talker like me. I think he might talk even quite a bit faster than me. So even in a short period of time, 15 minutes or so, I should get a chance to get a lot of questions in. Let's see, I'm going to log on.
Hi, Amanda.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, and you?
Really well, thank you. Although I'm pissed at Mike. He thought I was Australian. I'm like, you've got to practice your accents.
I love it. It's great to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you. So I guess I couldn't resist being an ex-journalist. I dug in a little, and I think what fascinates me most about you, and I'm most curious about, is of all the people I've ever met, briefly interviewed, when I look back at you when you were like 21, 22 online, you seem to be the same. That's quite rare. I'm curious, now you're filthy rich, successful, blah, 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 what that secret sauce is of coming across, at least, absolutely the same. It's not normal.
Thank you for that. That's incredibly flattering. The secret is incredible parenting, being on the receiving end of that, the luck of the draw of DNA, because I watched my mom parent my sister, who's 3 years younger, and we're different, and she's amazing, but definitely the DNA I was given on top of the parenting, and then circumstance, right? I was the oldest immigrant family, so it was different dynamics. And then I think, so I think a lot of, I get proud when I think about my businesses because I feel like my fingerprint is on them. I think when I'm getting accolades, I think my circumstance and parenting that was done for me, like that was a compliment to my mom/dad more than to me. And then I think as I got older, because I think even when you have bad parenting, at some point you transition into a place where you're an adult and you have the ability to change things, whether through therapy or, work on oneself. And so I think at some point in my mid-20s where it transitioned from just the sheer serendipity of how things worked out and I kind of took over the steering wheel of my life, I think leaning into humility, I think, is a big one.
Yeah, but you say that, but how do you stop the ego and not being an arsehole? Like, why aren't you an arsehole?
Because I never was, going back.
You think you have to start that way, though? I don't know. I'm always curious about that.
I think this is, by the way, I love this subject matter. I believe firmly, and I've been fortunate enough at 49 now to see very low income life for a long period of time and very affluent life for a long period of time. I believe that money and fame disproportionately accelerate the truth, not change.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I had an immigrant father. I had a really tough childhood, not horrendously tough, but tough enough. I was hustling from 3 years old because my mother couldn't put food on the table. And of course, I look back and I think how freaking useful it was to my journey now when I'm hungry and I never feel like I've succeeded, right? But I'm also curious about that piece too, because everyone gives me a hard time. Like, oh, you never celebrate the wins. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate one has to in a small way, but I think I'll go to my death feeling like I haven't done everything I could have done, right? I hope I'll have a long life. I'm curious about that piece because you're still, certainly the way I see you, extremely driven.
Yes.
And what is driving you that hard still?
Yes, that's a great question. I think this will resonate for you based on the context you just gave me. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I just don't know. I don't know what I wouldn't rather do something. I wouldn't rather ski or surf or or rock climb.
Or have a fancy jet and yeah.
Definitely not. I definitely don't. I'm incredibly non-materialistic.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want stuff. You know, I want to enjoy my process.
Yeah.
It's my art. It's my, in the same way that I'm sure a musician who's a pure musician,
Yeah.
even once they've hit enormous levels of success, will still want to make music.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
I still want to make businesses and organizations.
It's addictive, isn't it? I mean, I'm a new entrepreneur because this is my first rodeo. But I'm already addicted to it, right? It's addictive.
Yeah, I
mean,
think it's like anything. It sounds like, based on what I'm hearing, that it was always there. So now that you're tasting it, you're like, wait a minute, I should have been always doing this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're giving out constant, incredible, inspirational advice, do you think that we've talked about how our background shaped us, and I've got a book in me one day or whatever, which is about getting to that crux of what actually drives entrepreneurs, which isn't always the thing we normally talk about, which often is some degree of hardship, right? That people may or may not share. So do you think it is fully teachable in that regard?
I think it's teachable in that. Do you ski?
I ski really badly, leisure ski.
This is perfect. I've skied once or twice in my life, so I can't ski. I believe that you and I could get much better at skiing. That if you and I teamed up right now and moved to the Alps and for the next 5 years worked on skiing, that we'd be much better at skiing than we are now. But I don't believe that you and I could be Olympic skiers.
Oh, that's a bit harsh, Gary. Well, what about Eddie the Eagle? Do you remember that Brit? So maybe he could.
But I think, and by the way, to your point, maybe it was always naturally in there and we never knew. So maybe, to your valid point, maybe. Where I'm getting at is, I believe everyone on earth, whether it's skiing or cooking or playing basketball, can get better. But every human has ranges within certain skills. And it's nice to get to the highest range. I don't believe that people who did not grow up the way we did, or definitely not the way I did. I've been building businesses and selling stuff since I was 5 years old. There's just 44 years of deep passion and practice and natural talent, because it was always there, that would be hard to replicate for people who don't have that skill set or that time. And so I think natural talent is real. And I think for a lot of people, their ceiling is real. And so, yeah, I think you're born with it if you end up being an iconic, world-class, revered, you know, whether it's publicly known or financially on the P&L, world-class entrepreneur. But I do think people can get better at it.
Yes. Okay. So because, and the way I see it is, I always say I'm a visionary entrepreneur and I have impatience for the journey, but I've always known where I'm going. Always. For me, I see it like a kind of arc. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's like a ladder, and I take 3 steps forward, up, and then I fall down, whatever, and you just keep picking yourself up.
Well, I mean, I think to your point, actually, if I may, for a second, because you said something interesting there to me. The reason the falling comes in is, if you see the vision, it can only be achieved through the operations. And I think for a lot of people, that's where experience really comes in wonderfully, in become a more experienced operator.
Yes.
And back to humility, it's having the humility to understand that certain people can do certain things better than you can within your business.
God, absolutely. But I guess being a journalist, right, you know a little bit about lots of things. You ask constant questions. I get really worried when people don't ask questions.
Me too. I actually think people actually ask me a lot of like, what are foundational pieces? I think curiosity for me has been a massive brick.
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, what I'm really interested to get into you with is, we live in this binary world now, don't we? And of course, as an old school journalist, journalism's changed greatly. Obviously, there's some brilliant ones still here, but everything for me that's interesting is in the gray. like, I'm most interested in those debates that we tend not to have now, right? Because we sit in our homogenous worlds, whether it be politics, drinks, anything, religion, shoes, it could be innocuous things. It's like we all sign up to our tribe, and we live in such a binary world. And that kind of concerns me and kind of depresses me, because I think the friction and the change comes when you're all coming together from different perspectives and having those debates. I really am keen to your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think your intuition's right. I think that, look, I think life is only gray.
Right.
I mean,
who's all good and who's all bad, right? I mean, that's just bullshit, isn't it?
the odd. I mean, if you want to get into what you're touching on, my favorite thing to say to my friends, I said it last night to a friend over dinner, the audacity of believing that every person in the world should see the world the way you see it,
the way you, yeah,
is mind-boggling to me. Plus, I change my mind on issues.
Right. But these days, that's not what most people publicly do, right?
No, but the question becomes, one thing that I'm incredibly passionate about, curious how this lands for you, is I don't think people realize how much they're in control of life.
Right.
Like,
and what do you mean literally by that?
Literally, meaning I said to a friend the other day who was really down on the political state of America, I said, brother, move.
Right.
Move to New Zealand, move to Cape Town, move to Stockholm, move. And it was just like an interesting kind of, like, he had this realization where I was like, complaining and dwelling is not action.
Yeah.
If you actually mean what you're saying, which is America is in big trouble and it's bad, great news. That's, unfortunate. It's a country we both like and what have you. You were born here, I wasn't. This is what I was saying to him. I said, but I have great news for you. You're a big boy and you can move.
But you see, those are the sorts of conversations I have with people, and I realize it kind of sometimes, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman and I'm not famous like you, but it can piss people off because
There's not one person I've said it to that isn't pissed off.
Right, because most people, I don't think, Gary, that for me is rational, but most people don't really see things like that, do they?
That's because people are entitled.
Is that what you think it is?
I do. I mean, as if America's yours.
Right.
Like, yes, that's exactly what I think it is. Like, good news. It has nothing to do with gender or status of awareness. It is, for me, it always lands with my friend or contemporary or associate struggling with it up front, but I deliver it with incredible levels of compassion.
Yes. Yeah, same. But I think, I don't even know if people always want to hear it, do they? People don't like to hear what might be the truth, right?
That's right. Which is, I mean, it really, to your point, it speaks, the reason we probably have a lot of similarities is I also view it as rational.
Yeah.
And so I think, when you go into a state of irrationalness, and again, back to your career, this, the media, whether it's being produced by traditional media publications or it's being produced by humans amplifying things that have been shared by other humans or other media outlets, get people very irrational very fast.
Yes, and that's what makes great TV, right? Or radio or podcasts or social media.
Unfortunately, what has happened with that is now people are more interested in the commercial success of the ads or the views than the responsibility of the public service of such, responsibilities, right?
Absolutely. And I don't know, are you religious? That's just an aside.
So because I was born in the Soviet Union, I don't know if this is something most people actually don't know. From 1917 to 1991, religion was outlawed in the Soviet Union.
I did not know that.
So I was born in 75. So for 2 generations, I'm Jewish. We were unable to go to temple or synagogue. There was no churches. Communism, it outlaws religion. So my family is very non-religious. Obviously, as my parents get older, they have feelings towards the anti-Semitic stuff that they dealt with as kids, and now that has spurred up in the world. For me, I mean, I would say that I have the propensity as a human being to be the most religious, because from a spirit of the pure form of it, it's my soul. Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I live my life in a manner that has overwhelming compassion and sympathy for other human beings,
Yeah.
to the point where it's so extreme that I actually even have this weird relationship with animals where I'm mad that humans love animals unconditionally, but not each other.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. It's so interesting. I was asking because I find that just that kind of philosophical idea really fascinating, because I don't know, you talk about legacy. I've always believed that I'm open-minded, spiritual, fairly agnostic in a traditional religious sense, but I've always kind of felt like I've got to leave this world better than, when it started.
Because the answer is like, why wouldn't we, right?
Right, but
Why
that's
wouldn't you?
rational to you and me, but I wish it were more rational publicly. And I guess just briefly, thinking about my kind of, I'm building a household name non-alcoholic wine brand, Noughty, that I think you've
remember.
tried. Yeah, and we had a kind of debate because we met briefly in New York, and that was really interesting. But for me, when I'm long gone, I just figured that anyone who's enjoyed a bottle of Noughty, they've made a health choice without realizing.
I love that.
Yeah,
That.
that's my buzz.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Bye.